When we're doing our early stage rehab, especially for adductor tissue, it's imperative that we have at least 2 sessions a day of therapy. If we can separate these therapy sessions by about 6 hours or so, we really get a great opportunity to maximize the healing process. Although there's different sensations throughout the course of the day as far as pain is concerned, some people wake up with pain, some people kind of go to bed with pain. One thing that seems to be helpful is to kind of focus on soft tissue contraction and some simple range of motion stuff right away in the morning as far as our first rehab session is concerned. To maximize your adaptation, I would always suggest maybe about 15 to 20 grams of collagen before you get started with this stuff. But one thing we want to talk about today is the different types of load that this tendon is going to respond to. When we talk about the adductor tendon, we want to be appreciative of the fact that it's very sensitive to compressive loads just as much as it's sensitive to eccentric or lengthening loads. One thing that I really like to do is focus on some single leg stance where we drive hip motion through the thoracic spine or through the shoulders. When we can start to really initiate hip motion through the spine, we get a lot of opportunity to create some compression, and we also get to reconnect those areas both from a neurological perspective as well as an athlete perception. When we start with this first isometric contraction, one of the things I like to do is just to get into a nice single leg stance. Kind of crossing the arms across the shoulder so that we can kind of get that feel for connecting the thoracic spine to the pelvis. And nice and easy, we're just going to create some nice subtle oscillations just to find balance through the foot, start to figure out where we're going to gather our strength and balance as we start the exercise, but nice and easy just to warm up the tissue, some simple oscillations. As we get more comfortable with the oscillations, I like to bring the elbows into the side and kind of connect now the shoulders and the pelvis and start to really internally rotate on that hip. Now I'm getting a lot of compressive load through the adductor. I'm getting a nice amount of activity through the single leg stance phase of this. My knee is just slightly bent, so hopefully I have access to as many of those tissues as I possibly can. And we're just gonna hold here for 20 to 30 seconds. The more control we get, the more internal rotation we wanna create, and the more we wanna kind of challenge that load. After we've created some compressive load, it's easy to start to open up and start to get some lengthening load in through here through the same process. We can really make this nice if we put it into the squat rack and kind of use this as some, barbell taps or squat rack taps here, even in a doorway. Anything that we can use to try to drive the athlete's attention to connecting the hips and the shoulders through the thoracic spine, we can really initiate some good tissue contraction in and around the hip. A great tool for improving some awareness on this hip rotation as we connect the thoracic spine to the pelvis is to get inside of a squat rack where you can kind of feel the rack behind you as you turn. So in this case, I'm going to be balancing on the left, and I want to connect the movements of my hip and shoulder here. So I'm going to lock my elbows into my rib cage, kind of creating a little bit of scapular compression here. And I'm just going to naturally turn, and so my left hand touches the rack. I'm going to hold that position for about 30 seconds, keeping that contraction into my rib cage, and I'm going to open again now, and so my right hand touches that rack. Just creating some range of motion, some feedback, trying to keep some rigidity through the upper back and thoracic spine as we create some closed chain rotation through the hip. This is a great way to create some good rotatory motion in through there. It's a great way to load the tissues with some isometrics. And it's a great way for this first workout of the day to wake up the tissues neurologically, get things going, and contract some tissue before you get into a range of motion exercise.